Hey guys, it's Mark Mozart and David the intern for the first episode of the English Studio Breakfast. We talk about what we do here every day.
Yep.
David will introduce himself. I'll give you a bit of background of where I come from, what I'm doing here, and enjoy the show. Yeah. Hey guys and girls, welcome to our very first English Studio Breakfast. We've had this format for a long time in German.
Yep.
But we have such a big English audience, and as some of you know, my book Your Mix Sucks has been very successful over the years in the US, UK and English-speaking territories, as well as in Spain. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish. How about you?
No, I'm very much better in English than in Spanish.
Okay. Music? Where's the music coming from?
Is it Spotify?
Einfach Lautsprecher ausschalten. Alright. Sorry for that.
Don't sue us.
Okay. This is David. He's currently working as an intern.
Yep.
At Mozart and Friends, mixed by Marc Mozart.
The whole thing.
And I'm Marc Mozart, and what I personally haven't done much over the years is talking personal stuff in terms of letting you guys know who I am and giving you a bit of a background. And I think we should do the same for David.
Sure.
The idea for an English studio breakfast really came about when I heard that David's English is on a really high level. That's because you spent some time in America.
I did, yes. So I was an exchange student in Colorado Springs to be exact. For anybody who doesn't know, it's near Denver.
Yep.
And used to go to school there and do the whole high school school spirit thing in the US and took classes, and that's where it all started.
It just comes natural.
Yes, but you have to keep practicing it.
Yeah.
So it stays natural.
Yeah.
And you've told me that your English used to be great, but if you don't use it every day, then it kind of goes downhill after a while.
Yeah, we had for a long time in the same house where we got these studios now, we had a lot of writing studios and guests from all over the world all of the time. And the funny thing is, even though we're in Germany, as soon as one English-speaking songwriter enters the room, the entire conversation switches to English. So I used to be English only at work for a long time, longer than 10 years probably. But now all the guys surrounding me in the company are either German or Austrian.
She's almost German,
yes. So that changed things up a little bit. So that's the idea. So and how do we start? So your role will be interesting.
I hope so.
You will be a bit of a host.
It's kind of a co-host situation, I would say, and this is the first time we're doing this, so of course we're still figuring it out. But
so how do we go about giving people some background? Maybe you should take the interviewer role and ask me some stuff that you want to know about me. I'm not sure.
Sure.
How much you know, how much of an idea you have of my background?
I think some.
Yeah.
So far, I used to watch your content, and that's how I got here.
Yeah.
Or that's how it started of me getting here. And so I know some stuff. One thing, because I was thinking about how we're gonna do this and what we're gonna do here beforehand, and one question then that I find interesting is, how was the transition for you from kind of being a producer, songwriter, more through the publishing and then more mixing, mastering, and whatever we're doing now?
That's pretty easy. As I said before, now here's a mixing studio. Upstairs we have a mastering studio. Before it was all writing rooms. We had, depending on the situation, most of the times 4 writing rooms in this house. We had guests all the time, and we would just write songs all day long. And then you build a library of songs. You pitch them to artists, record labels, or oftentimes you co-write with the artists in the studio. So there were always lots of people around me. And yeah, there was a situation where pretty much the contracts that built this setup, like my contracts with the songwriters, sort of ran out. And I had to make a decision whether do I sign more people? Do I go into another setup? And you know, when you have a house with 4 writing rooms, then as a boss of this whole thing, my situation sometimes felt a bit like a facility manager.
Yeah.
You know, I was the only guy who cared about throwing the pizza boxes out at the end of the day, cleaning the whole place up. So I was like, hey, maybe I wanted some time on my own. I had the SSL, but wasn't really hooked up. So I said, hey, let's get this SSL thing going. Build the mix room, and I had a lot of people who asked me to do mixes and help them with mixes. So I pretty much transitioned into doing mixes for people and being on my own. And that could have been a good situation. I said, well, this is something I could do until I'm 90, sitting in front of my SSL, great sound, mixing, enjoying, and not having to deal with other people's pizza boxes.
So just to interrupt for a second, so for you it was less of an economic decision and really more about your personal feeling about the whole thing?
Yeah, it all has to do with how do I engage. You know, it also was an economic decision, but not in the main question was what do I really want to do until the end of my life. And then that doesn't count out songwriting and production. You know, I'll always write and produce, but it was just I needed a, how do you say when you go to Betty Ford Clinic? I needed no, it has nothing to do with drugs, but I needed a change from being surrounded with 20 people at all time. So being on cold turkey, being on your own all of the time. Talking about drugs, I've never been a drug person. I don't even drink. I don't even sip a glass of wine or beer or anything.
Some people would say it's a very boring workplace. I would disagree, but that's all a matter of taste.
Okay. So it was a decision I made at the time, and I had lots of people asking me about mix sound advice because, you know, in this whole setup where there were 15, 20 songwriters, I was always the guy who would deliver the final production. So these people would write hooks and riffs and this and that, and I would oftentimes be involved in the writing as well. But when it came to communicating with the A&R people, major labels, I was the guy who would finish the record, hand it over to the record label. So I was always involved in mixes and masters, and then over the years we had 500-600 people as guests here in the house. So pretty much the entire songwriting world, not just Germany but Europe and some of the US as well, at one point visited this place, and so people know, hey, this guy, I've seen him fix the mix real quick. And so I got on social media, lots of people would hit me up, hey, this my mix, I don't know. Can you help me? And I started like with 5 rules, you know, around you know, if you have a small room and kind of your low end it sucks in your room, then just don't boost any lows because you don't know what you're doing. Maybe have a headphone or something, but maybe just don't do anything. Find a sound that works, but not mess around with the low end. So I developed a couple basic rules, and also around gain staging, you know, reduce every level that comes into the mix by 15 dB and you'll be fine. and you don't know why, but it will just be fine. And then people said, hey, I did all the things you recommended, and holy shit.
It actually worked out.
Holy shit. And so then I started writing some blog articles and had the idea to do a book and this and that. And then the book blew up, and all of a sudden I needed help again because I couldn't deal with everything. You know, I wasn't a guy who could build a website, but now I can. But so I had to start, you know, how do I sell this thing? Because the first sales went just through a PayPal direct link, and then it's a simple WordPress site that would allow you to download something. So I had to build a shop system where, you know, the backend would give you proper invoices and all of this stuff. And it was going from me mixing to the book adds on, and then more mix requests came in because of the book and all of this. And this is how Nick came in here. Somehow I found him
Somewhere.
and I needed a person who you know, who I wouldn't mind hanging out, that requires a certain personality, and Nick was perfect for this at the time. And this is how, and then we added more people, and
That's actually another point that I was thinking before we started the live stream, and that's coming from my perspective as an intern.
yeah.
If some of you don't know, I just released a video yesterday where I kind of go through the whole experience of what I learned so far.
It's on YouTube now, right?
It's on YouTube now. That's right. And so
we have to put it on Facebook as well.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I have to do that right after this live stream
Good.
ends. And so now, speaking from your perspective, what are some things or some personality traits that you've seen in people where it has worked out for them? And on the opposite, what have you seen in maybe people do wrong or not exactly right for people that it hasn't worked out for them?
A lot comes to mind is when it's about interns.
For example,
most
interns,
of the time it doesn't apply to you, so that's a big compliment.
Thank you.
But people come in, and the ones that I fired after a short time, they wanted just to change around everything. This your business model and this and that, and we need to change this and change this. 19 years old, you know. So you don't know what you don't know. So I think as an intern, and this is what I did when I spent some time in New York with famous writers, engineers, I would just be very quiet and observe and listen. And when somebody asks me something, I would give it my best.
Yep.
And you know, and
if you didn't know,
I was happy when I could contribute with some value. But most of the times, I would just listen and learn, and I learned a lot this way. And sometimes you look at stuff and you think, not sure about the situation. I would maybe handle it differently. That doesn't give you the authority to tell people.
But don't you think there's like a fine line between telling somebody, hey, your shit sucks, or hey, me coming in from the outside, haven't been in it for so long,
well,
maybe there's something you can look at.
I'm extremely open for this. I don't know how you experienced me so far, but I let people do what they want to do. I'm not judging much. So what do I know? Final Cut, Premiere, I don't care what you work with, as long as the video gets out. You can do
very true.
iMovie or vinyl
It
or
works.
whatever.
It works.
It depends. I'm not a big ego, I think.
That's very true. Yeah.
That's people told me that, so I know it, and I don't want to. I can make decisions if needed. It's no problem.
I mean, you have to if you run this place. So because another thing that I also talked in my video, and just to connect to your point, is if you don't have anything to contribute to a conversation, just shut up. If you really do think that you have something valuable to say, don't be overly political about it. As how I could, touch somebody the wrong way or something. Then
Go
ahead, say it.
Yeah, I'm sometimes very quiet at home.
Yeah, there
Around,
you go.
around the stuff that my wife knows better, I shut up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but when it comes to the sound system,
You probably know.
I know where to place the speakers.
Yeah.
And then when she says, "But they don't look good there," then I'm like, "Okay."
Cool. Okay, cool.
I don't like speakers that size in the living room. Okay, that's why you have a studio.
Yep, that's why we're here. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different people have a lot of different opinions.
Yeah.
Why something worked out for them and
Yeah.
not for others, or the other way around. I think it's kind of interesting to look at it from both perspectives.
Yeah.
So, like me coming in, what is my view of it, and then you having interns here, for example.
I think you have not just for your age, but in general, I think you have a pretty mature view on the whole situation. But I don't know whether it's because you're really open and you say, okay, I just check out what's going on and
I just want to be here.
and shut up and I'm here,
Yeah.
or whether it seems you seem very wise at a young age.
I wouldn't go with wise.
Yeah, but it's a trait that, and I'm going into personal stuff, that you're an only child.
Yep, I am proud only child.
Yeah, this is something I see in only childs that
Really?
they had the whole attention from the parents, and they grew up more with adults than with other kids.
I see. Yeah.
So
I don't know. I always
I've been an only child for the first 7 years. It's
Yeah.
good that then my brother came along, because you're so know it all as a child when you're an only child. And
well, everybody is
that's
know it all as a
because
child.
it's
I
mainly
think.
because you're only surrounded by adults all of the time.
Yeah, I just mostly found other kids really annoying, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to play with them.
Yeah.
And that was just the way I grew up. And when we were on vacation, I didn't want to hang out with other kids.
Yeah.
I hung out with my parents and talked
And
about adult
that
stuff.
then plays out in like a nerdy environment. When we have guests here, sometimes they first of all, they don't know what to make of all these nerdy people in one house, and they go into details on gear and sound and gain staging and stuff, and then they're like, "Oh, I get it. You're a bunch of nerds around audio, and you just love life,
Yeah,
and
pretty
that's
much.
it. So I think that's just a good fit for you in this in this environment, and you just sit from morning to night and do your work, and you seem to enjoy it.
Yes, very much. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it, or I couldn't. I really think that. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but like I'm here a lot, and I think, or I hope you can see it. The people can see it from the output we put out.
Yep, absolutely.
Because that's if I'm here and nothing comes out at the end, it's a waste of time. But
and I grew up a little bit like that, so I don't know. I can look back to when I was 4 or 5. My life was always about. I was a kid, 3, 4, 5 years old, and I was saying it actually. I said I like projects. There's a thing where I'm 5 years old. And me and my cousin, we do a show for my grandfather on a little cassette recorder in 1974, and I'm singing a song, a German song. And the lyrics are about I want to make a big project and Henry Ford and building cars or whatever, So, and my cousin, funny enough, was doing sports commenting, was like pretending he was a sports commentator, and he's actually on the team of German Sportschau now.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. That played out.
Pretty high up,
out.
commenting football games and Olympics and sports, and so that's pretty funny early on. Where and then I was drawing. My dad had an old Audi, and I got the manual, and there was a mock-up of the car. And,
it's fascinating, isn't it?
And I started drawing the Cabrio version, the coupe version, and the
Nice.
tuned version. And so I had all these projects from when I was a kid. I had projects, and then my dad was working as a musician at the opera or theater, and I would sometimes come with him, and he would bring me to they had an in-house studio. And the engineer was his friend, and I was like, oh, all these studio Ravbox mixing, and I was hanging out at that place and being 7 or something. You know?
I just think all these knobs when you're a kid are kind of fascinating.
Yep.
Even though you don't know what they do.
Yep.
But just by the look of it,
The tape recorders spinning.
It was before my time, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's. And
I'm talking 1970 something, you know.
And for some people, you know, it's, I don't know, when they first see like a motor car engine, and somebody takes it apart and they find that fascinating.
It becomes a passion.
And other people see like Excel spreadsheets and all the numbers, and they find that fascinating.
Yeah.
So
I grew up with the whole thing, and then I quickly went into something that I'm still doing. I think I have to look. I was 20 or something. I had a friend from school, Alex, and we would produce music together all of the time, and we would fantasize. It was the time of Commodore 64 and Atari ST. Cubase wasn't even out yet.
Yeah.
And we were fantasizing about where the whole, basically what became then a DAW, where this whole thing went. Back then we called it a sequencer software. And we would fantasize about our own sequencer software, and we made mock-ups of the screens and what it should do. And I said, hey, you know, we really should have something where you just press one key and it plays a phrase, so you could real-time arrange. And then somehow my friend met somebody in Berlin, and they talked about, and they said, hey, we would be interested in your concept, and we presented the whole concept. And I was just out of school, being 20, and this is a funny story because people are like, wow, when they hear it. So we called this. It was a sequencer software for Atari ST. The look resembled very closely what how GarageBand looks like. It has neat 3-dimensional buttons, stuff like that, and it was timeline based, which was a pretty new thing at the time because Cubase wasn't even there. And we had real-time arranging features, and we called the whole thing Live. And they gave us 25,000 German marks for the concept, and we sold the name and the concept to them. And it had really good reviews in the early 90s, but the company didn't really have the power to really make it a major force. So it was really funny then later on to see Ableton come out with something called Live that had a lot of the features that we've done. I don't know when Live came out, but a lot of the features we've done 15 years before or something.
Just hold on a second. I'm just going to restart the camera.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. And there we go.
Are we fine in time?
Yeah.
Good.
25 minutes.
I every now and then I find myself back at this same type of drawing board where I would write a book, write a concept about something, and actually we should probably make it a major announcement next week or something. But I can tell you guys that, and you of course know this being around here, that next week there'll be a public announcement about a huge collaboration that we are doing. It has to do with the book that we are doing with Waves Audio, the plugin company. Yeah. So watch out for this. We're close enough to this event that we can talk about it. But
tease it a little.
There'll be more if you're part of the Waves Audio newsletter. Yeah. It will go bam in
You'll
your mailbox.
hear about it.
You'll definitely hear about it.
Oh yes.
It's happening next week, and this whole work reminded me, it's like what I've done my whole life at 4, at 20, and so I'm 30 years into fantasizing about workflow in audio.
Still works out.
Yeah.
I think we were talking yesterday about it, about the whole thing, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing if you know very early on what you want to do or have an idea what you want to do. Because I think also like the opinions go very much, you know, different directions, because some people, it takes them 40 years to find what they want to do, and it's great. And some people, they know when they're 5 years old what they want to do, and it works out for them, and it's great. So
both creates pressure, I think. When you know, so I knew exactly by the time I was 13, 14, 15, I knew, hey, I'm going to be a producer. I'm going to sit in front of one of those. This one was $1 million marks back then, so completely out of sight. But I had a smaller version of it that had 8 tracks and 16 faders and stuff, and it creates the pressure that you want to actually do it. So you have to push everybody aside. I was kind of lucky. I had to push my dad aside a bit at first because he didn't want me to become a musician, because he was a musician, whatever. But that worked out quickly, and he was really proud that, you know, at one point, and they started supporting it. So that's that story. But you have the pressure to actually achieve it. But you know, if you're competitive and you really want to go for it, you just do it, and you you need to put a lot of work in it, and have a bit of patience as well, which is very hard to have patience in the early 20s or 17, 18. I had no patience. So that creates pressure. But the situation where you're 19 and you don't know what to do also creates pressure. The situation I had, I created the pressure for myself, which, okay, you're in charge, you know, which is, I liked it. The situation where you don't know what you're doing, you get all this pressure from parents.
From outside,
They're like, what are you going to do? And grandma has a great idea. She's like, oh, you have to do a Handwerker, this will, you have to, I don't know. This will always make you, everybody's like, this will make you good money, and it's not hard work. This is, you know.
That's the most important thing.
That's the most important thing, that you can be chilled and make a lot of money. That seems to be the idea, everybody's ideal. And it never works out, of course.
I think for some people it's fine.
We had a conversation yesterday around lunch. I have a macro view around this because I remember the people I grew up with in school, and I remember what they thought was a good idea, and many of them said, hey, my parents suggested I be an insurance broker or this or that, or a lawyer or whatever. And then you see it 10 years later, 20, 30, and you see how it works, how it plays out. And if you take this decision lightly in your 20s, and you just give in to the pressure from your surroundings, and you just do something they think it's a good idea, you can end up really hating them later on, and you can. I'm seeing a lot of burnout and depression from people who didn't follow their heart in their 20s.
Yeah, the whole burnout conversation, I think, is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, it's about the conversation is about how much do you work. It's like, I work too much. But it's like, I can sit here for 14 hours a day and I'm fine.
You're loving it.
Yeah. So
how do you don't burn out if you do what you're loving?
And if at some point I don't love it anymore, then I have to change something.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, then I would burn out. So, I've never been in that conversation. Again, just looking at it from the outside, I think it's kind of the wrong conversation to have about that topic.
Sounds cliche, but you have to listen to your heart, and then.
Yeah. I also think the problem is when you start with you got to listen to your heart, you immediately lose a lot of people because it sounds too hippy-dippy for them. So you kind of have to frame the same thing a little differently for everybody you're talking to. So
on the other hand, I know exactly that a huge percentage of people, if they had a little more insight into what specifically I'm doing, they wouldn't trade with me. They wouldn't be able to deal with the pressure.
I think most people wouldn't trade with
And they don't want it.
Yeah.
They're like, hey,
Yeah.
I wanna know what the work is, go to work at 9, go home at 4, 5, 6 or whatever. And then
be done with it.
hang with the family,
Yeah.
do my hobbies and
Yep.
stuff. So, I would never say, hey, do exactly what I do.
No, absolutely not.
But I think I'm patient. I've become very patient. I've always been patient, yeah. But more so now than I was when I was 20 or 25. Or I can remember when I had my first deals with major labels, and then when the record that I produced wouldn't be properly marketed, I would really get upset with them, and I would tell them, and that wasn't good all the time.
Yeah.
So I have more patience now, and you have to think in longer terms, because difficult things take a little longer,
Yeah. Or things that are worth doing. If it's worth it to you personally. But yeah. It's just that, like, in your early 20s, you have so much energy
Yeah,
to do the things.
that's good, and you should use it. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't have it only go the way of, okay, I have to do everything right now and have to do it, and kind of get overwhelmed with the thing.
I don't know, what's dangerous is outside voices. And then, of course, if somebody goes into, I don't know, starting insurance brokering at 19, 18, 19, 20, or works at a bank, they, by the time they're 25, their life looks,
Yep.
they have
Pretty far up.
BMW, and maybe they start down payment for a house and family, and everything looks neat and nice. So, and that could put pressure on somebody who wants to go into art, where you don't know, it can take longer,
Probably will, yeah.
Or it doesn't matter, art, or you choose something very specific that you want to do.
Just, I think, also business, because we're getting into kind of the thing where business is cool. Because, like, we both know Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, what he's and other entrepreneurs are doing is just very cool right now.
At the moment, yes.
Yep. And so it's the same with music. When you go into music, and I've studied music, and I see people where it's like, okay, I'm done studying music, I'm gonna give myself July and August, and then I want to have a job. And when you do the same thing on the business side of things, I think it can also kind of tear you down in the long run if you look at it that short term. It's the same thing, in my opinion.
I think there's so much you have to learn. And what are the reasons for going into a business? I don't know, it's hard for me to say. I think that many people who look closer at what I'm doing here or what we do, they're a bit they are fascinated that I get to do what I'm passionate about.
Yep.
Part they're scared, because there are scary situations when you run a business. So you have to take a risk sometimes. You have to also calculate the risk. If you take a risk, you can lose, and it can be devastating. And also you need a lot of experience, and you shouldn't go into it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
But
that takes
who
time.
am I to say? I mean, when my decision formed to be a music producer and all that, it was an extremely attractive job and business to be in. At the same time, it was completely absurd, the idea that you could possibly make a living with producing pop music.
Yeah.
The ones who got into it made really good money, because it was a different age for the music industry, but at the same time it was like so impossible, mainly because the equipment to do a pop record in the 80s, you would talk about millions, hundreds, thousands of dollars, or millions at least. Yeah, but I didn't pay $1 million. This price, the
but
price has come down. So
yeah, things have changed.
yep.
So yeah.
So going forward, I hope you like this format. We don't really know what to do with the studio breakfast. I've done it. I've started it with Nick in German a little more than 2 years ago, and we would. The idea was basically that we would sit together and discuss around some of the stuff that were on our schedule for the day.
Yep.
So what's on the plan today?
Well, for me, I have to do some visuals for a project.
A project.
A
Yes.
project.
A project.
And because Mich's on vacation right now, so.
Mich, yeah, we are how many guys? We are 5 guys at the moment here.
Yep.
It's me,
Very tightly strict team.
Mark, the boss. Then we have Toby. You might have seen him on the channel. He works out of Berlin. He's here sometimes. He works out of Berlin. He is the operator, so he's planning out. Okay, you have to do this, this, and you have to get it done by Thursday. Otherwise, the big plan is getting fucked up next week.
Yep.
So
he keeps us all in check.
yeah, and I have a quick check with him every morning. Yep. Tell him me as the boss, I explain him how I make my day worthwhile. But he was a really good addition to the team because he makes everybody more effective.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, and he has a good background in business. He'd been at a huge startup for the last couple of years in Berlin. Yeah, and then Nick, we've talked about him. He's the guy who's
you've seen Nick around.
Yeah, he's the longest here. He's mainly mastering. So
now
there's a studio upstairs where he's mastering. He's involved in other stuff as well, but his main thing is mastering.
Let us know if you're interested in more content around mastering, because I feel like we could do more, because that's pretty much all that Nick does. So
we can do more around
everything
we're doing, and that's one of the reasons why you're here.
Yep.
Because you looked for an internship and you sent me a video application, and in the video application I could already see what you're good at, and then you came here and I said, yeah, just keep doing this.
And I kept doing it. So
yeah, and Mich was the next guy after Nick who came in. What he's doing changed over time. He's now very involved in the social media agency which we're running, and I mean, some way to describe this whole thing we're doing here is we're pro audio music and social agency. Yeah. So we're doing everything around music production,
services,
audio,
but
mixing, services. We do our own products as well.
Yeah, you do.
We do products for music producers, like the book, like mix templates, things around services. We master, we mix. People that bought a book get mix feedback. They can send us a song and we give them feedback on what to improve. That, of course, sometimes leads to mastering and mixing jobs. Yep. And Mich is working on the agency side. He's also been taking over the website, navigation, and all of this stuff, because as you put more products in the shop, somebody needs to manage the shop. So we'll get him in front of the mic one time. And David, and you met him today.
What's up?
So yeah, and you're mainly filming content, editing content. It's been quite a struggle for me. I deeply believe in creating lots of content, documenting the things we do here, but you actually have to put the manpower behind it.
Yes, absolutely.
And then there's always the struggle, like when Mich came in, he started doing social media full time pretty much. But then people get so good at certain things, and then you have a client who something needs to be done, and he's like, hey, let me try this. And it's like, holy shit, he's so good at serving the client.
Let him do it. Yeah?
And then money comes in because a client is involved, and then shit. And then we need another guy who's doing social media, because this mainly people come in and then they become so good at certain things. Like Nick started messing around with audio, and all of a sudden his masters are like so good. Then I'm like, hey, there's no point in me mastering it. You
Just do it.
You do it all day long. You're so good, and I can still, complain if it's not good, but it's good.
If it works, it works.
Yeah.
So I've been taking on some of Micha's workload.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff he would usually be doing, and
you started doing some of the agency work because
I can already tell that it takes away from the social media side, and that you as the boss who's paying for all of this at the end of the day have to make the decisions on where to put the focus.
Yeah, I mean there's clients and they pay.
Yep.
And they need their service.
Yep.
Of course.
So,
what else?
I think just as always, please let us know what you want to see, because like we said, this is new for us too.
I mean, we are very open and happy to give you lots of insights into how this company is running, what we're doing. We are not allowed talking about everything we do.
Yeah. But a lot of it
because we can talk around the principles, but I can't tell you the revenue of client X and what the strategy is for getting them more sales into their shop and to products.
Yeah. But let us know what would bring some value to you, and we'll try to deliver.
Yep.
I think that's the whole point of this.
Hopefully there was an entertaining studio breakfast. The complaint we've always got with the German studio breakfast was, where's the coffee and the croissants and the bagels? The bagels and
I'll bring some.
That would be otherwise. The problem is that we'd be chewing all the time.
Yeah, it's also kind of annoying, I think.
We want to put this out on the podcast as well.
Sure.
And
let's put it out everywhere.
What's really cool is if you go on Spotify, search for Your Mix Sucks. It's actually the Your Mix Sucks podcast.
German and English.
It's available in German and English, and we will probably put it on the same feed, and it will be Your Mix Sucks Studio Breakfast or something.
You'll find it.
Episode 1.
Yep.
All right, that's it. So, good question. Should we, at the end, do the introduction for the YouTube video?
Sure.
Because then we can cut it and put it into the front.
And I think it's great that we have all of that in the live stream. So, let's do it.
Yeah. So, let me be on fire.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
Hype.
Hey guys, it's Mark Mozart and David the intern for the first episode of the English Studio Breakfast. We talk about what we do here every day.
Yep.
And David will introduce himself. I'll give you a bit of background of where I come from, what I'm doing here, and enjoy the show. Yeah.
And there we have it.
Yeah, there we have it. Okay.
First episode.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. And we haven't told people that we try to make this every work day.
We'll try.
We'll try.
We'll try. That's the goal.
Maybe on the weekend, once we do 4 in a row, so we have a bit of a buffer.
So we don't always wear the same thing. We just might film some stuff.
All right. Have a good day, guys.